and begin the session. So good afternoon, happy Friday. Thank you again for being with us at the end of the week. My name is Megan Steiner. I work on the statewide team for school improvement, focusing on human capital strategies. And human capital, when we say it, we refer to everything from educator preparation, recruitment, hiring, development, everything through retention for teachers as well as other staff members. And this session is on creating job descriptions to attract your best fit general education teacher candidates. I want to note the phrase best fit teacher candidates. When we talk about recruitment, especially, it can feel like folks are really competing for the same pool of teachers, especially given that there's a shortage, and in some areas more than others. And the purpose of thinking about a best fit candidate is, yes, we have a shortage of teachers. Again, some are affected more than others, but you want to make sure you're not only recruiting teachers, but recruiting the teachers who are going to be especially well suited to your district, your school, and more likely, therefore, to serve your students well and to be retained and stick around and help prevent the need for greater recruitment in the future. So for those of you who are with us live, you'll see and we'll continue to post in the chat the note-taking template. For those of you who are viewing this, a recorded session on the YouTube channel, and this will be posted on the PDE Accelerated Learning YouTube playlist. For those of you who are watching the recorded version, on the Accelerated Learning page from PDE, there should be the opportunity to download the note-taking template for this session. This session is called a workshop because it is interactive in the sense that if you use the note-taking template, you are getting links to resources, to exemplars, taking notes, reflections on what you might do next, and so forth. So with that, this is part of a series of lunchtime meetings that will continue through the end of April. As I mentioned, they'll be recorded and posted on the PDE Accelerated Learning YouTube channel. And those of you who are watching the presentation live or had registered to see it live would have received this morning an email that provides not just the note-taking template, but also the slide deck. So you'll have access to my email address, but it's here as well if you have any future questions. So I mentioned this is part of a series. I'll just briefly share the future sessions. So a week from this coming Tuesday, there will be a session on creating special educator job descriptions to attract your best fit candidates, implementing or refining a uniform teacher interview process that aligns with your LEA's priorities, implementing or refining a uniform school leader interview process that aligns with LEA priorities, and implementing or refining the use of demonstration lessons. And if you're here live, you've already done this, but you can register through the patent.net/events site. And you can also share that with any colleagues who may be interested. So for this session, the objectives are that you'll identify, learn more about effective practices for writing job descriptions that will attract their target candidates for your LEA in schools. Consider how to prioritize information to include in job descriptions, and begin planning to apply these practices in your own job descriptions or job posts. So, especially if you participated in the first session on employment websites, this will take a similar structure to that session in the sense that we'll first explore some links to examples of job posts and discuss some effective practices for job descriptions. And you'll use the note-taking template to assess your own as well. Take a deeper dive into desired teacher competencies and prioritizing those in a job description. Discuss how to get feedback on any changes or development of a job description and next steps. And that will be approximately the first 45 minutes of this session. The next half hour, folks who are participating with one or more colleagues from your LEA will have a breakout room in which to use this note-taking template in the next step section to do some planning and discussion. Those who are participating and you are the only one from your LEA, there will also be the opportunity for you to reflect, interact, and plan in the main room. So with that, we'll explore some examples of job posts. And throughout this presentation, we'll use the terms job descriptions and job posts interchangeably, because of the expectation that any post advertising a job opening should include or link to a full job description. And I understand that some platforms, some online job search platforms, don't allow enough space for a full job description in the main post. You may just need to prioritize certain information, but would want to link to a full description anyway. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been on some of the major job search platforms that folks in the state use and seen a wide variety of posts, some of which literally just say, here's the name of the district, here's the certifications we're looking for, and send your resume. And if I know that district really well and it's my dream district, I'm probably applying there. But if I know little to nothing about it, I still know little to nothing about it after reading that job post, other than what certification they are looking for. So we'll look at some recommended practices of what to do beyond that. So first, why focus on job descriptions amongst all the things we write and develop in the recruitment and hiring process? So in previous sessions, we focused on making a positive first impression through employment websites and through social media. Now, whether candidates arrive at your job post through a link from your website, a post from Facebook, a referral from an acquaintance, a job search platform, or anywhere else, all candidates will view this content on their way to actually applying. And good candidates will comb through it thoroughly. Some of you may have fond or not so fond recollections of applying for various jobs and looking through the job description and any other posted information, and oh, am I using the keywords? Am I showing that I really looked carefully at what they're expecting? And that's what good candidates will do. So you want to make sure that you are clearly reflecting what you're looking for in all that information. So with that, we are going to start using the note-taking template. I have the hard copy and you have the digital copy, which I feel is more useful anyway. So you'll see there's a section at the top called Explore Examples. So these are some examples of effective practices in action. And I'll give you about 8 or 9 minutes to click through. You don't need to look at all of them. You can look at the ones that seem most interesting to you. But respond in that template, make sure you've saved it to your own computer or your own drive, and take notes in response to these questions on what do you notice in these job posts? What content or types of information might you want to include in your own job descriptions? And what are some keywords or phrases that you see that make you think you may want to include in your own job descriptions? What else does that bring to mind? And I'll mention that many of these examples happen to be from charter schools. From the examples I've seen, often charters tend to put particular emphasis into communicating who they are and how they work in their postings and job descriptions, because candidates may not be as familiar with the school or know what sets that school apart. So that's kind of one of the reasons why they are so represented in this list. So with that, take 8 or so minutes to look through and take some notes, and then I'll ask you to share a bit in the chat. All right, so we'll come back in just about a minute. I noticed a question from someone who just joined us. Um, so we have posted and can post again in the chat a document that we're using to accompany the session, the note-taking template. And so right now, everyone's taking several minutes to look at the list at the top of that document to actually look at some exemplars of job descriptions posted from schools in and outside of Pennsylvania that use some effective practices and are taking notes using that same document on sort of what you notice in those job posts before we go into a list of some of the effective practices. So we'll come together in another minute or so, and I'll ask for folks to respond. And in fact, folks can already respond in the chat. If you have any answers to question number one, what do you notice in these job posts? Did anything stick out to you as an interesting idea? For example, the ones from Utah take the form of a brochure. Now, not everything can be a brochure, but that was an interesting concept. Information about the district and their culture. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely can help set apart a school or an LEA. Any other thoughts in response to the first question? Yeah, so people are already hitting on a number of the practices that we'll talk about in just a moment. The brand or identity of the organization, the benefits, what is offered to for being a new teacher, what kinds of supports, an ideal candidate profile. That is something we're going to talk about as well. So thank you for mentioning that. Um, are there any key words or phrases that stood out to you that you think, oh, that's useful, or that's something I might want to include? That's question number 3. Teacher supports. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. That goes along with what are the benefits of being a teacher, a new hire there. Um, Commitment, experience with the concept, definitely. So hopefully looking at those examples has been helpful, and we're actually now going to look at some little excerpts from those job posts to go through some effective practices. So in a moment, and you could access this right now, if you know where you can find a drafted or posted finalized version of just a teacher job description for your school or LEA, whether that's something where it is in a file, or it's on your district website, or it's on PA REAP or paeducator.net, or whatever it may be. If that's something you do have access to right now, um, take a moment to find it, because we will be using that. You won't be sharing it with anyone else, but you will be using it to sort of take notes for yourself in just a moment. So we're going to go over a few effective practices for job descriptions for teachers. And in addition to the role of the job description in making a strong first impression, we know that communicating the context and advantages of your schools is especially important in a more competitive job market. So the following practices are based on research from educational and governmental organizations. And of course, it's not necessary or expected to include every single suggested component that we're about to mention in a job description, but consider how to prioritize these types of information based on the types of candidates your school is seeking. So these are just a couple of reflection questions to think to yourself. They are not on the note-taking template. When teacher candidates read a job description for your LEA, What do you want them to know that sets your LEA apart from others? And if those job seekers are unfamiliar with your LEA, maybe they're from another part of the state, maybe they're from New Jersey, maybe they're from Maryland, anywhere. What kinds of information are they likely looking for when they read a job post? And as you're thinking about it, if you'd like to share in the chat your answers to number 2, go ahead and share those. District size, thank you. Yes, that is something I had on my own list as well. The type of community, the demographics, yeah, who you are, where you are. Another thing that some folks are interested in is the number of colleagues, not just how many teachers in the school, but, will I be the only middle school science teacher, or is there a whole department of us? Or how am I expected to work with colleagues and so forth? Or is there built-in time to do that? Salary, yep, definitely upfront with salary information, salary steps, and so forth. Yes. All right. So let's keep the best fit portion in mind. I mentioned that at the very beginning of this presentation, that when there's the shortage, when the market is competitive, it is easy to get in the mindset of we just need people. But of course, really, we need the people because we want them to serve our students well. And so that's where this slide comes in. When considering content for a job post, remember the contexts and needs of your schools and students. Show off your advantages, successes, and improvements, which we've mentioned in other sessions in this series, but don't sugarcoat. You want candidates who are prepared and eager to work in your schools as they really are. That's why the session title refers to your best fit teacher candidates, the folks who have the right mindset and intention to work in your schools and stay in your schools. So with that, we're going to use the note-taking template again. There is a section on pages 1 and 2 of self-assessment notes. And this is just for yourself. You don't have to share it with anyone else. Well, it would be a good idea to share it with colleagues in your LEA. So as I mentioned before, if you can access a draft or a posted version of a job description for a general education teacher in your LEA, whether it's something that's posted publicly online on your district's website or on a job searching platform, or whether it's a draft or a finished version that you have in an email from someone or a file somewhere. And as we go through the coming slides related to following effective practices for job descriptions, you can make notes right in the self-assessment template about your own LEA's job description in terms of what you think is going well and what you think you could improve upon based on the practices I'll mention and the examples I'll refer to. Now, I should mention, thank you for those of you who have been posting in the chat. If you have any questions as we go along, please also put them in the chat and I'll try to get to them. And if I can't get to them, there will be that half hour of planning time at the end where I can respond to any other questions and have any other discussions as well. So with that, so the first practice I want to talk about is maintaining clarity. That seems obvious, but there are a couple of little things that can trip people up. So yes, be clear about what you expect, be clear about who you're looking for, but also think about the particular terminology you're using. So some organizations like to have their own particular spin on the way they refer to their employees. For example, if you went to the job description on the list here from Two Rivers Charter School in DC, they say we are I would say we are crew, not, they have a certain term they use for their teachers, but they wouldn't want to put that as the title of a job description. They'd want to say, science teacher for fifth and sixth grade or something. So use straightforward job titles rather than creative titles like high school math department head or elementary teacher leader, rather than teacher quality captain, because that seems vague and seems like that could be 4 different things. Avoid LEA specific or even Pennsylvania specific terms and acronyms, because we know people may be coming from other states as well. So reports to school leader rather than reports to charter CEO, for example. Now, this is more of a technical tip. Use keywords that candidates are likely to search for when they're online searching for jobs in a general search engine, or if they're using a particular job search platform, also keywords that are likely to be searched. Now, this is more of a technical tip again, and if you look at additional resources at the end of the note-taking template, there is a link there to more information about using a Google account in expert mode. But if you do that, you can access the Google Keyword Planner to learn which terms are most searched every month. So if I want to know, is a certain term that I think a social studies teacher may put into Google when they're searching for a social studies position, was that a common term in April when a lot of people are looking for teaching jobs? You can use that. And again, there's some more information about that in the additional resources section of the note-taking document. Also, in terms of maintaining clarity, mention or link to information about next steps in the hiring process and an approximate timeline if you have one. This next one's important. Who should candidates contact with questions about the application process? You may have had the experience where random people in the organization or the school principal or the current 6th and 5th grade social studies teacher or random people in the central office are getting emails and calls about someone who just has a technical question about the application, because there isn't information about whom to contact with just a logistical question. Not, I'm trying to get an in into this job, but more, okay, can you explain what I'm supposed to do here? That sort of thing. Next is listing minimum qualifications. Again, seems obvious, but doesn't always happen, or doesn't always happen clearly. So for example, if you're open to hiring teachers under emergency certification, be clear upfront early on about the minimum requirements so that non-certified candidates know whether they're eligible to apply. Also, some LEAs or schools may use a particular learning approach, such as project-based learning, and mention whether you expect or prefer candidates to have training or experience in this approach. That can go both ways. You might really only want to hire someone for a particular position who has experience with a particular curriculum or approach, or you may want to make it clear, hey, just because we do this in this grade level doesn't mean you need previous experience to be a serious candidate. So either way, be clear about that. So here's an example. This is from one of those brochures from Utah for the high school math teacher. And just wanted to point out, of course, this is Utah specific, but they are clear about who they are willing to hire, what types of certifications. You might have a certification for a different grade level. You might need an emergency certification, etc. So the next is also, if you're a cyber charter or an LEA virtual program, be clear upfront about whether and how often teachers need to come in to the physical building, if they do need to do so, and where it's located, just so they have an idea of the logistical geographics of who can apply. So making a strong first impression. This includes several approaches that we covered in previous sessions on LEA employment sites and social media use. So as much as you can. I used to be a middle school writing teacher. I was very into showing and not telling things. Show, don't tell, what sets your LEA apart. So we've mentioned in previous sessions, video or written testimonials from teachers, staff, students, families, etc. If it's a video, this may mean you're linking to it from a job post. A link to the LEA or school website, videos of classes or special activities, and links to further information that can help show who you are, like examples of student projects, local news items about the school, details about major successes or improvements in the LEA. Be clear about who you are. So as folks mentioned earlier in the chat, describe who your students and staff are, define your mission, share your approaches to learning, including any school-wide or department-wide or grade-specific curricula or special programs. So here we have, again, one of those brochure job descriptions from Utah, this one for a kindergarten teacher. And you may have already viewed this one on your own because there's a link to it from the note-taking template. But I just underlined a few phrases that stood out, and they link to a lot of this information as well. So we can clearly see this is a nationally and state recognized elementary school. It tells us how big it is, tells us about their performance, tells us about supports from a coach and mentor for teachers. So who they are and what teachers can expect in terms of support. Also, in terms of an example of making a strong first impression, you may have seen the link to the job position from the Noble Schools Network in Chicago. This is again showing us successes of the school network, who the students are, outcomes for their students, the percentage who are accepted into college and so forth. Someone also mentioned compensation. Be upfront about compensation. So many of us have likely had the experience of looking for a job and seeing the phrase, compensation is competitive. That's just going to cause people to feel frustrated in some cases. So this is part of making a strong first impression, being upfront with this information. It may be hard to define your salary scale in a little post on a search platform, but you can link to further information. You can also include or link to information about benefits, including any opportunities you may have for tuition reimbursements or stipends for additional roles and responsibilities that teachers can choose to take on or apply to take on. So this is again the example from Noble Schools. They link to their salary schedule and also employee benefits and a particular tuition reimbursement licensing program. So I see we have a question in the chat. Using phones, thank you for mentioning that. Okay, we mentioned that in the website session as well. Yes, so you do want to make sure that you're not causing people to scroll on their phone forever. That's a very good point. Thank you. That is where linking to information can come in. You can even, if this is on your own district's website and you have more control over it, you could even do that sort of click down menu situation where you have each section of the job description, like compensation, qualifications, responsibilities of the job, where the user clicks on that and then sees the information and then, clicks away to get to the next one. That's just one example. I don't have there's no guaranteed way to make sure someone on a phone isn't going to get overwhelmed with information necessarily. But the alternative to that could be also to just allow folks to click away to something else when they're ready to see it. But that's a great point to keep in mind that many people are doing this on a phone and not a computer or a tablet. So defining the scope of the role, it can be easy to assume that a general education teacher has virtually the same role across schools or across LEAs, but we can likely reflect on our own experiences in various schools or districts and realize that's not always the case. For example, one of the job descriptions that was linked to was for an elementary lead teacher. That's a role that can vary quite a bit depending on what the school expects of a lead teacher. So this includes clearly listing tasks and expectations, like are you meeting with a grade team to do certain things at certain points, and what are you doing? Include or link to, as I mentioned, opportunities for additional roles and responsibilities and how those are compensated. Some LEAs may have and want to communicate uniform expectations for teacher inputs and outputs, like design and submit lesson plans at least 1 week in advance, or produce at least 1 year's growth in literacy for all students as measured by such and such district assessment. So just as an example of the scope of the role, I used here this middle school math teacher position from one of the mastery schools. And some of the phrases that stood out are things like foster a love of math, growing and developing in your craft. That really shows sort of the mindset that they're looking for. But also along in terms of the scope of the role, things like working with certain personnel like specialized services and school culture teams, um, receiving supports like teacher coaching and feedback from assistant principals, etc. Now I also, and this is kind of a long one, but included a couple of screen grabs from the FACTS Charter School also in Philly, um, for an English language development teacher, because under responsibilities, and this is for all teaching roles in the school, not this role in particular, it really does show a lot about the school culture, climate, and general expectations, and values and mindset. So things like self-reliance, responsible behaviors, positive self-image are important for to cultivate in the students and the staff. Catering to the needs of all ability levels within the staff, within the class, using the primary language of families when possible and appropriate, participating in weekly grade team meetings. And then when we go on to the portion that is specifically for the ELD teacher, it mentions some other particular parts of the scope of the role, like expectations of increasing academic performance of English learners, co-planning or co-teaching with certain other staff, knowing that their caseload may shift based on needs and they may teach varying grade levels. And that's something that can happen with an ELD teacher or a variety of staff in other schools as well. The next practice is consider equity and diversity. So if you are aiming to increase diversity in your staff, be sure to represent the diversity in your current staff when you consider who to include in testimonials or other recruitment information. And this also applies to diversity in gender, age, or experience level. Include competencies, competencies you're looking for in your staff that reflect the importance of equitable practices and expectations for all. And you can also refer to any efforts to increase staff diversity, support diverse learners, enhance culturally responsive practices, et cetera, that are going on in your schools. So as an example of that, we have another screenshot from the Mastery Schools teacher post. It calls out explicitly things they prioritize, like serving all students with excellence, addressing educational inequity, making sure all students are prepared for post-secondary success. And it also includes an equity vision of what they value and what they are aiming for in their schools. This next one we're going to get into a bit more in depth, which is be intentional about desired skills and knowledge. So a thoughtful list of desired competencies doesn't just communicate who you are looking for, it also communicates who you are as an LEA, what you value, and who your current staff are. So we have this example from Utah again, and I underlined some key phrases of what they're looking for in the teacher. Someone who maintains a safe environment, establishes rapport, motivates pupils to develop attitudes and knowledge that will help them reach their potential. Those are some examples of skills and abilities they're looking for. This next one, this is probably the longest one, is from that charter school I mentioned. We are crew, not passengers, was the phrase, the one from Washington, D.C. And this is only part of their list of desired skills and qualities, but some of these are more explicit or tangible, like integrate curriculum across academic disciplines. Some are broad, like meeting the needs of every child in a diverse population, previous experience using data. So you may have already looked at this list if you followed the link to that particular job description. But this is just another example of a district really showing what they are looking for in terms of mindset, skills, and knowledge in a new hire. Now we're going to dive a bit deeper into desired teacher competencies. So if you're wondering, by the way, how to look into how to evaluate these competencies in an interview process. There is going to be a session later in the series. It's, I think, the second to last session on a uniform interview process that will have some tips on how to do this as well. So now we're going to turn again to the note-taking template to pages 2 and 3. It says desired teacher competencies. There are two lists here. The first is from the Danielson framework, the one that aligns to our own teacher effectiveness and evaluation system. And on the next page, there is also a list of competencies for teachers in school improvement. Even if you're a school that is not in school improvement, that second list can still be useful as well. So I would invite you to just look through for a few minutes, look through both those lists and make a note or put in bold any competencies that you think are particular priorities for your school or LEA and should be mentioned in the job description, not necessarily word for word, but referred to in the job description. All right, moving on. And if you didn't finish it at this point, obviously you can continue to look at that list as we move on. Another thing, and I'll save this for the planning time, but there's also some questions just below it on page 3, at the bottom of page 3. Someone had mentioned a profile of an effective teacher. Some LEAs have this and everyone knows what it is. Some LEAs have this, but not everyone knows what it is. And some don't necessarily have this. So these are just some questions to consider. Do you have a uniform profile or description of an effective general education teacher for your school or LEA? If so, what skills are required and how can you more clearly reflect those in the job description? And if you don't have this sort of profile, who would you need to involve in the discussion to develop it? So just take a moment to think about those questions, make any relevant notes, and then we'll move on to the very last section. Now, another thing I just want to note is you may be thinking about job descriptions for non-teaching staff. And in that additional resources section at the bottom of the Word document, there is a link to a job description writer from the US Department of Labor. And if you'd like to view suggested skills and knowledge for other school positions like paraprofessionals or substitutes, there's some information in that additional resources section about how to do that. These are not going to be uniform across every school, but they're just suggestions based on research from the US Department of Labor for those other positions you may have in a school. So feedback and next steps is the last section. So as you make any changes to a job description, before you finalize the content, it's a good idea to ask for feedback from various sources, such as school leaders, current teachers, student teachers, or any other people who you know will be or are looking for a job, and recent hires who were recently going through this process. And you can ask reviewers for feedback on these or similar questions. Is the information in the job post clear and well organized? Would this differentiate the LEA in a positive way from others? What else might a candidate want to know before deciding whether to apply? What positive aspects of the LEA are not clearly communicated or linked here? And does the content seem like it would encourage all qualified candidates to apply of any gender, race, age, etc.? So with that, we're going to go into LEA planning time. So regardless of what you're doing next, again, there is a survey at the bottom of the note-taking template document that I would encourage you to please respond to. Now, if you are in this session with one or more other people from your LEA, you have the option to go into a breakout room. You'll see in the breakout rooms, they're named, they have different LEA names on them. So you can go into the breakout room and discuss everything we've just talked about, but particularly the next steps section on the last page of the note-taking template. It has some questions to help organize thinking over what you might do next. If you're the only person from your LEA participating, you can do basically the same thing. Stay in the main Zoom room. If you have to go or you're hungry for lunch or something, I totally understand. And thank you for participating. But if you'd like to stick around for all or part of the time we have between now and 12:15, you can look at, again, that next steps section on page 4 of the note-taking template. Make some notes and also ask any questions you may have from the session. Share your ideas in response to the next steps questions. And because we want to recognize that a lot of folks are doing things that work already, you could mention any effective practices already used in your own district's job posts. So to do that, you can respond in the chat or even take yourself off mute at this point. So first, if you are in the main room, I'd suggest that you take just 2 or 3 minutes to respond to those questions on page 4 for the next steps. And then if you want to share out any of those answers to those questions, you can do so in the chat or by unmuting yourself. And if you're not sure whether there's someone else here from your LEA, you can look at the participant list. And if they are, you can go to the breakout room that has your LEA's name on it, if that is something you'd like to take advantage of. Okay, thank you for mentioning that. And that's great that you've received positive feedback. Not everyone has the opportunity or the inclination to kind of get feedback on the information you provide to candidates. So positive feedback regarding vision and mission and sharing district size and demographics. And Bev, if you don't mind sharing in the chat or just by unmuting yourself, how do you get that feedback? Like, is that from people you've recently hired?
Yes, typically when I am meeting with a teacher doing their onboarding paperwork and just following up, I tend to just reach out to them and ask them, what about our job posting, caught their eye, what encouraged them to want to apply for our district, and also ask for suggestions that they may have, to attract other candidates that are looking for teaching positions.
Okay, yeah, that's a great step to take. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else you'd like to share that is in your job descriptions, job posts that seems to be going well or a good practice that you'd like to share? And if anyone has any other questions or comments, or also wants to share how you're responding to those questions from the next step section, you can do so in the chat or just by unmuting yourself and speaking. All right, so if you are in the main room, and it would be useful for you to share any questions, comments, thoughts, responses, questions for your colleagues who are in the main room as well. That would certainly be the time to do that. Otherwise, we're just going to keep the breakout rooms open until about 1:15. Oh, and there is something in the chat. Oh, creating a profile of what an effective teacher would be. Yeah. So that starts with the list of teacher competencies, right? And of course, these two lists from Danielson and from Public Impact are not exhaustive, but they can help with sort of brainstorming what that would be. And then once a school or an LEA does have that nailed down, as I mentioned, there's going to be a session in April about sort of applying those desired competencies to a uniform interviewing approach. Oh, so the question is, would this go before the objective? And that can really depend. When you're thinking about how to organize this information, you do want to think about, as someone else mentioned, like how long is someone scrolling through the post, and things that are shorter may be useful to put higher up, in fact. The desired competencies, which are part of the teacher profile, those are usually just like a bulleted list, which tends to be easier for folks to read and digest. And I saw that on the registration list. I know a lot of folks who registered probably are just going to watch the recording later, but on the registration list, we did have someone from Facts Charter signed up. If that person is in fact with us right now, it would be cool to hear if they know anything about how that job posting was developed, but probably that person is not here. But if you are, and want to let us know more about the development of that job post, that would be cool. Okay, that's a good question. The exemplars I've seen, so the question is about a format. The exemplars I've seen for job descriptions don't necessarily follow the same format. I think the main idea is, to have different sections of the job description slash job post to make it really clear. So like, wherever compensation is, big subtitle compensation, then information about salary, benefits, etc. Or job tasks, make sure that's easy to find, because folks who are job hunting, they're looking at a lot of these in a row, so they're kind of in the mode of, let me look, let me know what information I'm looking for and where to find it. So I think the idea is more make it easy to find. Someone did mention, if folks are applying and looking on a phone instead of a tablet or a laptop, there's a lot of scrolling to do, which is where you may want to link to further information. But it is a great idea to have additional information about the school and the district available as much as possible. So that's a good question, Bev. Do other districts have job descriptions for every specific teaching position, or a general teacher job description they use? So I've definitely seen both. I've definitely seen very simplified job descriptions where, again, it just says we are hiring elementary teachers K-6 in this district, and that's it. And then some are more specific. So before I answer that, Tracy, you said, do you want to explain your answer? But, oh, sorry, you were eating and I asked you a question. You could type it in the chat or unmute yourself or whatever. Oh, I see. So Bev, you said your job postings are specific, but the job descriptions are different. Do you mean like that the job descriptions are general across schools and subjects?
Yes, our job description specifically that we have the teacher sign at the time of hire is just a
Mm,
general teacher job description. So that's why I was just curious, as far as other districts, are they specifically by teaching position? But our job postings, we do post specifically what we're looking for.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see the distinction. Yeah. So, like, if you're hiring the middle school science teacher, and if you're let me put the recruiting side of things. If you're recruiting the middle school science teacher, you may want to include in that posted, information like, here's the curriculum we use, here's how you'll be collaborating with certain other staff and coworkers. But I can see how you might not want to put that in the job description that they're signing, because that could change. And you don't want to make it like, oh, sign this document, but now 2 months later we're going to change something, because that, people might not feel like they are being communicated with transparently or something. So I can see how in the job post you might want to give a little bit more about the context, but then when someone's signing a description, a contract, what have you, you may want to be more broad, knowing that things could change. So that's a great point. To get to your earlier question though, yeah, when you're using the recruiting materials, it is good to be specific when you can. Of course, districts might say, well, we know we're going to hire some K-6 elementary folks next year because we have 10 schools and we're absolutely going to hire some of them, so it's just a general one for any of our schools, and that's what you got to do at that point in the year. By the time okay, it is a third grade position at school A, that's a good thing to put in the job post. Here's information about the school and here's what we do in our third grade curriculum, if you have access to that information.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we're doing. All of our job postings are very specific as far as grade and location. But I know we've had some discussions here on whether we need to have separate job descriptions for each teaching position, or is it okay to keep it generalized? And I look at it as, if we break out every single teaching job description, that's a lot of management to have to continuously update if there are changes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, once I was hired for a small charter school network where literally the job post was for one school that had a certain focus. And I came in and I interviewed as though it was for that school. Then they told me, okay, we can offer you a job. But I didn't realize it was for a completely different school. I ended up liking the school a lot, but maybe they should have been more broad in their job post. So I didn't give an interview thinking it was for a school with a different focus. Yes, we have about 12 more minutes. Any other questions, comments, questions for one another? Thank you for participating on a Friday. I know it's been a long week for me. It probably has for you. All right, thank you. And we do have some groups in the breakout room, so we're going to stay on until 1:15 to leave it open for them, certainly. And if anyone else has anything else in the meantime, feel free to chime in the chat or by unmuting yourself. Oh, that's a great question about support staff. Yeah, that I don't know so much about, but if anyone wants to share anything about job postings for custodial staff, bus drivers, et cetera, that they'd be interested in sharing. I mean, the only thing I can really share that's material that I've learned is be very, very, very upfront, even the job title, about the hours. So like if you're willing to hire custodial staff who work, let's say just in the mornings, and then others who work in the afternoon, that flexibility may perhaps help attract more people. It does depend. Just be very upfront about, are there different, what are the different types of shifts, and just because people can help identify early on if this is something that will fit their schedule. But other than that, does anyone have any other thoughts on job postings and recruiting for those sorts of staff? All right, I'm going to close the breakout rooms. Let's see. All right. Well, thanks again, folks, for being here on a Friday. And I hope everyone has a great weekend and perhaps see you at the next session.